Troopers! Troopers! Welcome to the Hank the Tank Podcast. I am your singular host for this evening, as my former compatriot, the Idaho Skatesman, is missing in action, currently under the control of the evil Isha. What the heck, you guys? But fear not, Hank the Tank is here to save the day, because I'm probably the only one on this planet to have watched all the boxing. Sorry, I don't know what came over me there, but boxing, kickboxing, and MMA this weekend. So strap in, everybody, because for now, it's my war zone, my commentary, and my rules until the Skatesman returns. Likely Thursday or Friday, but until then, you're stuck with me and all my schizophrenic thoughts on combat sports, even boxing. Boxing. So, let's get started, shall we, troopers and grinders? We started Friday morning with one Friday Fights, and what a show that was, ladies and gentlemen. Incredible stuff. Honestly, always superior to one fight night because it has way more Muay Thai, way more prospects, less height difference, and less freak shows as well. So results in more consistent combat sports, not mixed martial arts. Get rid of mixed martial arts in one, and Chatri will actually make a good financial decision for once in his life. First, we got Katsuaki Aoyagi versus Jun Hee-jung. Excellent work from Aoyagi, back and forth, as you expect. Let's see, this was MMA, so shockingly a knockout in mixed martial arts. But this was mostly on the feet. Neither guy really knew how to shoot that many takedowns. And Aoyagi got the knockout on Jun Hee-jung. Beautiful work from him. Then we got a women's fight. Yay. Then we got an armbar submission from Avazbek Kolmirzaev against Changi Karaul from Russia. He's Genghis Khan's favorite sibling. But Avazbek, this fight didn't last that long. Not a lot of stuff on the feet, mostly just takedowns. And then Avazbek countered him and got an armbar. Great. How fun is that? Then we got Iko Ota versus BM Fairtex, another member of the Fairtex clan with more family members than the biggest family in Alabama. They don't do it the old-fashioned way. They do it through the same name of their camp. Oh, by the way, I should take a look at my chat for a second and see how everybody's doing down there. What about the member stream, Isha? Oh, God. Stop talking about the junkie, all right? I told you, he kidnapped Idaho Skatesman. He's under the control of this evil, evil man. How dare he be a good Samaritan and watch all the MMA shows, but then take away my co-host, my partner, my compadre away from me. That's really disgusting. I'm about to... Oh, you son of a bitch. I knew this would happen. See, I warned the world about it, but they didn't hear me. They didn't listen to me. Damn you, Isha. How could you, just as we were on the road to 1,000 subscribers, you take away the beating heart of this channel? Absolutely despicable. My show, my show, my show. Yeah, it's right. I mean, if you don't like it, you can always leave. It's a free country in America, in the war zone. We may have absolutely brutal violence and people trying to shove their guts back in from being blown up by a mine. But, it's fair. It's free. You can always leave the war zone if you want. I'm just kidding, Nisha. I'm just kidding. Stay around, man. Stay around. Hopefully we get the collab done. And then instead of it being a POW camp, it'll be a POW union of friendship, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah. Oh, let's see. Good old mixed martial artist. He's out of the joint. He's Tyrone. Isha about to steal your co-host. He already did. Aren't you listening to me? He's already gone, man. I'll never see him again. And yes, I am indeed sitting in a chair. I'm going to put this in the corner as I'm reading the rest of these comments because I just like to watch. You guys, I like to watch the comments. Still doing it. Take him, Isha, me, and Hank will take over the game. No, we will not. It will only be Hank the Tank. It is my podcast, you see. There's no collaboration here. No getting any other words in. It's only my voice. I'm the cult of personality, baby. Snowflakes? Hey, I ain't no snowflake. I'm Hank the Tank. I'm the baddest man on the planet. I'm doing all this shit on my own. I'm a tough SOB, you hear me? Oh, God. Wrestling! You know Idaho Skatesman hates wrestling, Sean. And if he were to hear those words coming out of your mouth on a live stream, let me tell you, buddy, you'd never be watching the Skate Tank podcast ever again. So we don't mention wrestling in this house. But if you want to message me privately about wrestling, you can always message me privately, and I got a lot to say, and I'm enjoying wrestling right now. Anyway, enough of this. No longer Skate Tank, now it's Hank Tank. Damn right. Couldn't have said it better myself, Denial. And with that being said, let's go through the rest of my rundown for the first card of the weekend. Snow as in Tyrone's. Oh, yes. Well, we don't talk about it in the household that much, Isha, okay? This is a private matter. We keep it on the hush-hush, and then we get it from the local alleyway from our dealer, and then, we sneak it into his pocket every now and again because we can't have him be too sane and realize that we have him trapped here in the war zone. We got to make sure that he's doing this by choice. It's just his habit that he has to deal with. His own addiction, you see. Yes. All right. If I keep going, people are going to keep interrupting me. So I'm going to keep going through my show. And then at the end of the one Friday Fights card, then I'll go through your comments. Hold up. Wait a minute. All right. This right here. Look at this. This is big Cass. Wrestling. This was, I think, the highlight of the entire one Friday Fights card. Old Solin Ooh, Man of Steel. That's right. I was looking at the live stream for one Friday Fights, and what did I see? A bunch of flags for Myanmar. That's right. The good old home country of Joshua Van. He's not the only one fighting out of Myanmar. You also got this man right here, Clark Kent, without the glasses. So he's obviously a Giga Chad. He ain't no virgin Clark Kent. He is the ultimate son of Kal-El. And we found a Superman here on this earth because he absolutely demolished Pong Siri PK Cyan Chai. He hit him with the Superman punch. And no, it was not the Superman punch where you go, hey! He hit him with an uppercut. But it was absolutely worthy of Superman because it put him right out. No chance for him to recover. He was flat on his back like a fish out of water. So Solin Ooh, he really is the man of steel in the 1FC. And because of this, he got himself a 100K bot contract from China. Wow. Amazing work from the Man of Steel. He's a big fan favorite. Even the people in Thailand love him. And they're patriotic pieces of shit, but they still like him. Incredible. And then after that, all the people with the Myanmar flag scatter because they don't actually like Muay Thai. They don't actually like 1FC. They just like their local hero winning, which is kind of immoral, but I dig it. And we got Sunday, Bloody Sunday. Man, this guy must be a fan of our podcast because he knew that we'd be recapping this show the very next day. On Sunday. We'd be recapping the whole weekend on Sunday, and so he decided to change his name just for us. Wasn't that kind of him? And he put up Chusup with beautiful punches, including a big body shot that put him down. Incredible work from Sunday. He just completely mauled him, and it was a gorgeous thing to see. Put him right out. Then we got yet another gorgeous body shot from M. I know at this point, Idaho Skatesman would tell me to elongate it, so I will. And I'm going to absolutely butcher his name like the soldier I am. So here we go. Mai Sangam Sor Ying Jaroen Gancheng. Not bad. I gotta say, I didn't want to put any effort into that, and I accidentally did. So good for me. He had a nice little scrap with whoever the hell this is. P-Chat Bong Zane. Oh, ChatGPT, put this guy out, please. And that's exactly what he did. What I'm noticing with a lot of these Muay Thai fights for 1FC is that it's just a little bit of back and forth, no grappling whatsoever because it's Muay Thai and it's based. and then the man on the left, he usually gets some sort of body shot or a knee or whatchamahooey, and it puts him out in either round 1 or round 2. I've never seen a round 3 KO in a Muay Thai fight in my life, and that's the way it is, and that's the way it should be in the 1FC. But will Chatri listen? No. He'll just keep that shit in the morning, and everyone else gets to suffer. You know how I said that we don't get a lot of we get less changes in height, disparities in height on Muay Thai? That's not true at all, and it was on full display in this main event. Old Nabil Anane, he looked at least 5 inches taller than whatever the hell this man's name is. Okay, this one's for you, Idaho. Kulabdam Sorjor Piek Utai. He got kneed in the head multiple times like a putz. And because how dare he be a shorter opponent than the guy opposite him? Absolutely disgraceful stuff. So Nabil Anan, he did it the right way, and he happened to be born at a higher height. And so because of all that great effort and not genes, he was able to get a bunch of knees because he's taller and the legs were longer. So incredible stuff from him. Totally a display of talent, you guys. So anyway, that wraps up One Friday Fights. What a shoe. What do you think, guys? Did you watch One Friday Fights? Wasn't it incredible? You watched a Thai fight this morning. Cameron Church was dominant. I have no idea. Is that yet another promotion that does Muay Thai? Wow, bots, baby, bots. Yes, sir. MMA. Stickman killed his ass. I don't know about Henry. Are you talking about Henry Stickman from the online game? Oh, yeah, the tall guy I was just talking about who got the knees. Wow. Yeah. He absolutely destroyed him. So fantastic work from him. Let's move on to the bad end of the coin for 1FC this weekend. Let's take a look. We got Oak versus Rasulov. I looked at the highlights for this one as well. Let me scroll up. All right, so we had a lovely KO from Alexei Baliko. It was back and forth stuff, but it just seemed that like Baliko was the more technical brawler of the two, and he got a left hook that sent Stefan Korodi to the mat. He had already knocked him down before, but this one was especially brutal. Sent his head 90 degrees west, and down he went. The referee immediately knew to call it. He had given him a chance before, but Baliko just has too much power, and he took his head off his shoulder. So great way to start the night. Unfortunately, it took a steep decline after that because old Rugrug Umar Kane was gifted an utter can who I don't think has ever had a kickboxing match in his life in Mamadou Kamara. He's not doing your mama. He's not doing anybody in because unfortunately he has too many windmill punches to be able to land on any opponent whatsoever. And Umar Kane, he saw this and he immediately knew what to do and hit him with a perfect counter shot that sat old Ketchup down. It was rotten stuff. Again, I got to mention his camp name is Ketchup. And unfortunately, it was Umar Kane who was putting the mustard on him. This was a battle of condiment warfare, and I think Umar Kane had too much spice for the man to his right, and he sat him right down. This was an embarrassment for one, in my opinion. Very entertaining for me and a lot of people, I'm sure. But overall, it showed that one can be a circus too. Maybe not as fun a circus as Pride, but a circus nonetheless. It'll make for a fun memory that we all share back and forth in a few months, but not good for the company because they didn't even show it on their video highlights. Then we got the Black Panther. Wakanda forever, baby. Taking down Ali Saldoev. Black Panther looked fantastic here. He didn't give Ali an inch. No did he. And was just piecing him up throughout this contest, finding his timing every single time they had an exchange. He showed why he deserves to be in one after a lot of boring decisions. First time he knocked down Ali was with a hook, and Ali got up. He was fine. And then Black Panther knew it was time to finish. So he perfectly timed the head kick, Alex Pereira style, and sat him right down. It was beautiful. Good night, Irene. laid flat on his back. He was done. And I'm glad that we got another Black Panther as a superhero to worship in this world. You don't have to watch him on the screen. He's continuing the legacy of Chadwick Boseman. Let me look back in my chat to see if there's anyone here. Yeah, good old ketchup. Yeah, put that mustard on him, unfortunately. Yeah, it seemed like any condiment was better than ketchup at this point because ketchup, the fighter just like ketchup was just big, ooey, gooey, gelatinous, and didn't sit down well at the end if it's not Heinz. So poor ketchup. Yeah, this card, I'm skipping a lot of the boring stuff because, man, there are a lot of problems with this card. With Ellis Barboza, he got one knockdown, but he was getting absolutely dominated for the whole fight, and so they just gave him the split decision. Everybody thought that Alif won. That was a nightmare. And then with Hiraba Minowa, I made a mistake. I should have picked this as my lock, even though it went to a split decision. That shows just how unpredictable the MMA fights were for this card, and shows just how bad MMA is as a sport for ONE FC. They were going back and forth. Neither man really dropped each other. This was just a really boring fight. And I assumed that Minowa would win because he lost his last fight by majority decision, whereas Miyata was getting finished. I should have went with my heart because Minowa did win in a really rotten affair. And then Wada won. I can't remember what even happened in this fight. Then we had, in my opinion, the fight of the night for Friday fights between Bampara Koyate and Luke Lessay. Luke, the chef, was not cooking anything during one fight night. In fact, whatever he was cooking, it turned into a chunk of coal. It was definitely smoking after a while on his grill because he didn't pay it any mind. He looked absolutely rotten in this fight, and he for the first half at least, he couldn't put a lot of stuff together. Bampara Koyate was just more technical at the start. He was whooping Luke's ass. I didn't see almost any good offense from Luke for a majority of this thing. And then by round 3, his coaches must have gotten something into his head because he started to come back. It was hitting Bampara with some good shots. At one point, he did sit down Bampara, which would have made this fight a draw. He activated the old chef, and I was like, hold on, let him cook. And that's exactly what he was doing. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. Incredible comeback sequence where Luke Lessay is just beating the shit out of Bampara, but Bampara somehow finds a way to separate from Luke after a really brutal tie clinch and then hit him with a shot that just sat him on his ass. And then he was just looking at the lights from the canvas, and as he was getting up, he was going real slow, and the referee had to call it off. A little early, in my opinion, because Luke looked like he was still in it, but he was very slow to get up, so I can understand why the referee called it. Then we had arguably the worst fight of the fight night between Ji-won Kang and Kirill Grishenko. What a rotten affair this was. Absolutely no punches from the two heavyweights somehow. Grishenko just basically held up Ji-won Kang against the ropes, sat on him, sweated a bunch. It'll take Ji-won Kang a lifetime and a lifetime of showers to get all those remains off of him. And Ji-won Kang in the second half of the fight started to throw a few punches, but it was for naught because Grishenko started hitting him with some stuff, evening everything out. And it just goes to show that heavyweight MMA is bad everywhere, not just in UFC. So I don't know. Unless you're Tommy Aspinall, cut all the divisions. Fuck heavyweight. They're an embarrassment to the sport at this point, and no heavyweights seem to be able to be in shape. So, yeah. Then we got Tai Ruotolo versus Joseph Chen. I skipped this fight because I knew what it was going to be. 1 round, 12 minutes total, and Tai Ruotolo just scrambling a lot with Chen and getting a few latched up submissions every now and again, and I expected him to get a submission at some point, but I knew that there was potential that this would be 12 minutes, so I didn't even bother, and I was right too, because this was an absolutely boring affair, could not save the card whatsoever. Then we had a finish, but it wasn't enough, and honestly, it was controversial because the guy who got the knockout was Nico Carrillo. against Siamapech Fairtex. Yeah, this was pretty standard for Carrillo. Just be taller than your opponent, get up against the clinch, hit him with knees, hit him with elbows, make sure that to keep the distance close, and then your height will basically make the difference and you'll win. Now, that's not fully definitive of Carrillo's style. He is a really good fighter. He has good stand-up, but it's clear that he gets a very heavy advantage from the extra inches that he gets. Now, I'm not saying that's always bad. Sometimes it gives us great moments like Jonathan Haggerty knocking out that Muay Thai legend, Nong O. And he's had a hell of a run since then. And he's been a big star for ONE FC. But unfortunately, I disagree with that kind of approach when it comes at the cost of fairness in these fights, especially in Muay Thai. Nico Carrillo, I think, should start taking on guys his own size to make these fights more even, because he's ruining a lot of careers with his height. But he's fun to watch, so I won't blame him. I'll just blame the organization. And then we had a full 5 rounds, 25 minutes of Rasulov just crotch-sniffing Ray Yoon Ok. If there's one thing I've learned from this fight night, and I should have learned from the Skatesman, it is that you do not trust Korean fighters, especially in MMA, ever again, because they start out with a bunch of cans, and then once they move to any territory, they start to absolutely crumble. And we saw this in both these Korean fighters contests for this night. Yoon Ok could not do anything against Rasulov and basically just laid there as Ali Beg beat the brakes off of him for 5 whole rounds, just sat on top of him and did absolutely nothing. What a rotten affair. What a terrible card. Let's move on, shall we? Ugh. So anyway, we're past that. Thank God. Let me read some of the chat for the Hank the Tank podcast. It's me! It's me! Like, oh. You do you, buddy. I mean, I haven't seen that condiment on the store shelves. Maybe I will in the future if you start to be an entrepreneur yourself. But yeah, you do you, man. It's a unique perspective to have. Cameron Church versus Lion. It was a rematch from 3 months ago. Watch the first one and today's show with Cyan Chai. He was on before Cyan Chai, Hank. Wow. It's a nice bit of trivia. I'll consider it. Chef was tossed like a salad. Jesus Christ. He smelled like egg rolls and sushi. Okay. So we got some slander of a certain population in the chat, which I don't agree with at all. But then again, I am a soldier, so what do I know? I just follow orders, and I follow the comments. So I'll just go with whatever they're saying with no responsibility whatsoever. We move on to a more fun show in LFA. Now, this thing had a pretty slow start, a women's fight. Matthew Mateus Felipe, who the hell knows who he is. We had some decisions. And then things started picking up when Guilherme Uriel got the guillotine choke on Wesley Alec. It was back and forth. Nothing much. And then Alec shot the takedown. Uriel countered, got his arms around the neck, squeezed tight, and Alec went fully out, went to sleep. Like Tony Ferguson, once Bobby Green tightened up that arm triangle long enough. Yeah, he was fully out. So the referee might have stopped it a little bit late, if I'm being honest. But he was fully unconscious, and we love the violence, so I'll dig it. Then we had a few fights I got right. I correctly predicted that Marias was going to win, and I correctly predicted that Dutra was going to win. Yay for me. I knew that Lonnie Silva would beat the brakes off of Pamela Mara, and that's exactly what happened. Almost complete Brazilian sweep on this card, except when Vladimir Calvo came to town. And he just looked better than Leonardo Mesquita. Took him down a bunch of times, was the better Cuban wrestler, which is starting to become a movement in that country. Was also better than him on the feet. This wasn't a really close fight. Calvo did excellent, as I sort of predicted he would. He was a dangerous Cuban talent, so watch out for that country when it comes to LFA cards and any other ones. And Hugo Paiva absolutely destroyed Rodrigo Roldan, hit him with a bunch of punches against the cage, and down went Rodrigo. Was absolutely spectacular finish. Good stuff from Paiva. Then Bertolso was able to take down another Peruvian, Alejandra Fernandez, get her fully down on top, and just started elbowing the side of the head until she got the finish. Great stuff. Hooray, we got a finish in a women's fight. You love to see it. Diamond in the rough. And then we had Pedro Dorito versus Leandro Solano. Excellent work from Dorito, the Dorito. He has not spent his time in his mother's basement playing video games, drinking Mountain Dew, and eating himself. No did he? He instead chose to have fantastic takedown defense and make a man out of himself in the Gracie tradition, and would not allow Solano to take him down, even though Solano was absolutely desperate to get a takedown throughout this fight. He just could not get it, and Dorito kept raining down elbows and right hands and left hands on Solano, and when they did separate, Dorito just beat the crap out of him. So excellent work from him. Solano was absolutely exhausted by the time round one ended. His face was Jackson Pollock masterpiece, and so they had to stop the fight. Hooray for Dorito. The Brazilian sweep until it stopped once again when Apollo Gomez faced Lionel Aboger. Now, I'd say for the most part, Gomez was winning this fight. He had better stuff on the feet. He was stuffing most of Aboger's takedowns. I thought, oh, God, I picked this guy Aboger as an underdog, and he's going to fail like my underdogs always do. But that's not what happened. Aboger finally was able to shoot a takedown. The thing about these great grapplers and these great submission artists is once they actually get a takedown, it's their world. And I would say that was definitely Aboger's world. He tripped up Gomez. He took him down, got on the back, got the backpack, baby. Dora the Explorer stand up, and he got in the rear naked choke. It was all over. Aboger, after he was done with his fight, did a whole row of lines on his glass table because he needs those to function every once in a while. So that's how he celebrated the Scarface guy. And he was shocked after he won. He was super excited, of course, but his eyes were wide like, oh, my God, did I just do that? And then Gomez was like, oh, God, did I just lose? It was a crazy scene and probably the biggest upset of the night, followed by another big upset when Ingles de Lara beat Lucas Militic. Now, I chose Lucas Militic because he was a great Argentinian kickboxer. He's excellent on the feet, but he wasn't this time, and de Lara just had more tools in his toolkit to pretty much neutralize Militic's offense, and it went to a pretty standard decision. About halfway through, let's look at what the chat is saying. Jay even says Church is the real deal for Americans in Muay Thai. Nice. Well, I hope that Church's chicken continues to dominate within the Muay Thai game, and that eventually Colonel Sanders and his secret recipe can find their way to win at the end of the day. I'm rooting for the Colonel. Then we got Samuel Diaz. Man, I want this guy to be an official Diaz brother to make his cousin twice removed, Nate Diaz, proud. The Diaz family is back, baby. They're better than ever. And Samuel Diaz, yeah, he's been a round one knockout machine in the LFA, and it was no different for this one. Renzo Corti just looked lost on the feet. Diaz was able to trip him up and then almost immediately got on top of him and pounded him out. No Jones for the win. Absolutely brutal stuff. Renzo Corti was trying to survive, but Diaz's elbows just kept landing to the back of the head, and eventually Corti completely seized up. And it was a brutal affair, but I like what I'm seeing from Samuel Diaz. My only recommendation for him would be that he stops taking photos of himself in front of a green screen and they plaster his body on some random PNG of a city street, because it makes him look amateur, man. I hate what we're doing with Photoshop these days. We need to stop it. We need to go back to the olden days of, the McCarthy era of calling out all the secret spies. And, that very civilized time. Anyway, we then got Marcos Degli putting out Ignacio Fernandez. Beautiful stuff from Degli. Dominated on the feet and on the ground. Once he got a back lock on Fernandez, and he was flat on his chest. He just completely destroyed him with punches to the side of the head until the referee just couldn't take watching it anymore and mercifully stepped in to stop this thing. The Brazilians continued to absolutely dominate on this Brazil versus Latin America card, topped off with its crowning achievement on short notice, as a prospect should look on short notice, against Manuel Mena. Who does Manuel Mena remind me of? I think he reminds me of Chip Mariscal in the UFC, in that he's just looks tubby. His head is literally looks like Charlie Brown from the 1950s, old football head. And he looked just as slow as ever against Carlos Leal, who looked way better on the feet. Was just piecing him up, finding the leg kicks, and then once his head opened up, went to the head, right hand, left hand. It was elementary, my dear Watson. And Carlos Leal eventually, he leg kicked him enough that he started to crumble, and then right hand, left hand, put him right down. Absolutely gorgeous stuff from Leal. He made it look easy, which is always good to see from a prospect. So good job, Leal. And that was the end for the LFA card. Way better than one fight night. I was glad to hear that because I love the LFA. I love their action. So keep on doing what you're doing, LFA. You're the best region in South America, which honestly isn't saying much, but I'll take it. Then let's move on. Oh God, this is the part of my podcast where I start to ramble on a little bit, and people may not like that, but it's what I have to do. I have to follow my heart in this instance and let the world know my truth, brother. And the truth here is that boxing used to be more exciting than the UFC. It seemed like a more unpredictable sport than the UFC, and it was unpredictable tonight, but in the absolute worst way possible. That made us all remember why boxing isn't really a sport. I'm not going to go through this entire card. Good for Keith Colon. He's a prospect to look out for. Other than that, my lock and Abdullah Mason got a KO, unanswered punches. The LeBron's team threw in the towel, and I wish that was LeBron James in this instance, but it's not LeBron James. It's Luis LeBron, and so whatever, he's a nobody. Seeing LeBron getting beaten up would be a real circus in MMA. But these last two fights is why I don't think I'm ever going to take boxing seriously again. I'm not going to have any hope or faith in boxing ever again. And I'm going to remember why I tuned out of it a couple years ago. This fight between O'Shaquie Foster and Robson Canseco somehow made me hate Robson Canseco after that fantastic fight he had with Emmanuel Navarrete, where he honestly deserved to win that, and he didn't get robbed, but it was a bad decision that went Navarrete's way. It was a draw. Exciting fight for sure, one of the fights of the year last year, but this fight has basically taken away all the good repute that Canseco, all the good faith that Canseco had from that underdog performance, because he did not deserve the win or the title in this case. O'Shaquie Foster basically beat his ass for 12 whole rounds. Canseco couldn't get any of his shots off. Foster kept the distance very well, had a great guard, and when he could, he found the punches to the body and to the head. Looked super technical in there, looked like the world champion he was. Should not have gone to a split decision in this one, even though that was the result of his last fight. So maybe they've been trying to screw him for a while now. Maybe boxing doesn't really like O'Shaquie Foster for some reason, even though they'll give the decision to Shakur Stevenson. I'll get to that later. But O'Shaquie Foster, he had one of his better performances against Canseco. The commentary had it 119-109. They literally gave him 11 rounds out of 12. And somehow this went to not only a split decision, but a win for Robson Canseco. Foster was crying after this. A lot of boxing fans were crying after this on Twitter. And shockingly, their crying was deserved in this instance because they now realize in their heart of hearts that boxing is the joke that it was a couple years ago. They had hope that boxing would sort of supersede MMA this year and actually come off as a better sport that made better booking decisions and had better shows overall and results and better stars. But all that has taken a nosedive just with this card alone. And I know that it's not a major one. I know that it was free for the most part. I know that it was top-ranked boxing, which, you know, has a terrible reputation in the first place. But you get results like these, and you don't just have a bad opinion of Top Rank after a fight like this. You have a bad opinion of boxing as a sport after this. Decisions like this remind me that it's not legitimate. The house almost always wins when it comes to the boxing fighters that they want to have win. And in this case, for some godforsaken reason, they wanted Robson Canseco to win over Oshaki Foster. Maybe they want a good market in Brazil. I don't know. But it's just ridiculous. Canseco's face was an absolute mess after this fight. Oshaki Foster looked like he wasn't even in a fight, and they took it away from him anyway. And he was absolutely destroyed. Canseco and his team celebrated like bitches who knew that they lost. And now I don't care about Robson anymore, and I hope that Foster beats his ass in a rematch. Absolutely ridiculous. The house always wins. This is a casino, not a sport. So they're going to pull stuff like this every once in a while. And for that reason, I was actually in high anticipation for a knockout from Shakur Stevenson, because if anything, his team would know that if this fight went to a decision, he might very well lose. And so Stevenson's coach the entire time told him, hey, Shakur, you got to put this guy out. Hey, you know, you did well this round, but next time you got to put the lights out. Come on, let's finish this thing really quick. Who the hell knows what these judges are going to score this fight? Just get him out of there. And Shakur did what he always does. Put up his little Sean Strickland guard. Did little rabbit punches every now and again and looped around the head and didn't do anything from a distance. Didn't have any setup or power in his punches. He just tried to outpoint him the entire time. And he looked awful even as he was landing on Artem. There were moments where Artem was actually getting the better of Shakur in this fight because Stevenson can be a very big coward sometimes and lean against the ropes like Kevin Holland against the cage, like Ryan Garcia in the corner. Don't hurt me, please. And Artem wouldn't listen, and he, you know, Jones, and he pummeled him against the corner a few times, and Shakur turned on the gas. His foot was on the gas at like 5 miles per hour. You know what I'm saying? At the very minimum. And he just could not put Artem away. He didn't have any punch that rocked Artem. There were no knockdowns in this fight. Absolutely sour display for boxing, to the point where the promotion was actually having camera people do angles of people leaving the show. That's bad for business. You don't want to show that if you're trying to put over a boxing star in Shakur Stevenson. The next big thing in the sport. Shakur absolutely did not prove it, even though he said he would be the next big thing in this fight. So obviously another lie from Shakur Stevenson. He's Haney 2.0. But now it's to the point where even the promotion hates him. And so I thought, oh my God, they're going to take it away from Shakur for sure. He had a worse performance than Foster. And the judge's name sounded similar to the last fight. So, oh God, here we go. And guess what the scorecard for the commentary was? That's right. It was 119 to 109, the exact same score. But that did absolutely nothing to affect the result. A funny thing, the commentaries were saying the exact same lines they were saying in the Foster fight as well. So I thought, oh my God, this whole thing's rigged. They're going to take it away from him. And I was actually anticipating it. I was like, rob him, rob him, rob him. Because at that point, once the sport undermines your intelligence, you undermine it right back. And you just root for chaos. And unfortunately, the boxing card couldn't even do that right. They couldn't even stay consistent with their own principles because they gave it to Shakur Stevenson. Now you have to deal with his boring fights even more. And this is why the best boxing card for the night was not Stevenson versus Artem, whatever the hell his name was. It was actually an MMA boxing card in Diaz Masvidal. Now, I want to first and foremost apologize to the troopers, all my troopers out there, because I got this lock right here wrong. Gabriel Aguiar Costa absolutely dominated Stephen Dunn and put him out within 2 rounds. Ridiculous. Stephen Dunn was 5-0 in boxing, and Gabriel Aguilar Costa was 3-7 in boxing. Now, yes, he got a knockout in his last fight, but that was against a 0-0 guy, not a 5-0 guy who's beaten every one of his opponents by knockout. So, silly me assumed that the undefeated boxer with nothing but finishes would beat an absolute can who's been put out by everybody. But silly me, Stephen Dunn looked absolutely done in this fight. He couldn't throw a good punch to save his life, and you can't predict bad amateur level boxing sometimes. Then Bryce Logan beat Jose Aguayo via KO. Nice. We got another finish. Kermel Moton. Now, I've heard some things about this kid. There's one specific member of the City Life Discord who had a lot of praise to give to Kermel Moton. He said that he was the future of boxing. He said he was better than this entire roster in terms of talent. And you know what? Maybe he is, because he put out a Russian boxer within 2 rounds, even less than 2 rounds. And so good for him. He looked fantastic in there, very technical, had a lot of power. So maybe denial will be proven right, and Moton will be the future of boxing. Good for him. I should have picked him as my lock, honestly. Then we had Amado Vargas versus Sean Garcia. Sean Garcia sucks. Idaho Skatesman said it himself. He predicted the future because Garcia looked helpless in this fight, and another American in Amado Vargas put him out cold within 6 rounds. Great stuff from him. Good for Idaho Skatesman, even though I'm sure he probably doesn't care. And then a sad performance from Anthony Showtime Pettis. He did not make it look like a show in that fight. He made it look like a bad soap opera that you see in a Spanish channel that's like, 347 on the TV guide. And because he looked helpless, he looked slow, he looked like every one of his, how many years old is he? Give me 1 second, troopers and grinders. I gotta, troopers only. He looked like every one of his 37 years in there, even though he somehow beat Roy Jones Jr., he could not beat this absolute scrub in Chris Avila, even though I'm pretty sure this was sort of on short notice. Avila looked good in there. Pettis did not. He should retire from boxing, and honestly just retire as a whole, because he's made his money and he's gotten his wins. He's won his championship. But yeah, unfortunate stuff for Pettis. I want to erase this from my brain. And then Shane Mosley Jr. absolutely dominated Daniel Jacobs like a lot of people expected him to. Good work from him. It's 10 whole rounds, 30 whole minutes, goes to a decision. This is why I was an MMA fan long before I was a boxing fan, ladies and gentlemen. It was a decent scrap. Now, you might be thinking, well, Henry, Hank, this fight also went 10 rounds. It went 30 minutes. Why is that not a boring fight? I'll tell you why, troopers. Because Nate Diaz made this thing a show, like he always does. This is what we should have expected from Showtime Anthony Pettis. A very characteristic performance, a lot of in-ring charisma throughout. And these two guys, their single fight that they've had in boxing outshined every single performance that Shakur Stevenson has ever had in his boxing career. Because what do you know? Both men actually came to fight and trade punches, especially Nate Diaz, as you would expect. Diaz looked great in there for the most part. He was classic Nate Diaz, just putting on the pressure, output central, just finding the gaps wherever he could and just tagging Masvidal with uppercuts, with right hands, left hands, around the guard, under the guard, straight jabs. Diaz, he never really slowed down. I mean, he slowed down around round 8 or round 9. He started to get a little bit tired, but almost every single round he was throwing more punches than Jorge Masvidal. Both men are the same age, but you just can't stop the cardio of Nate Diaz. You cannot kill the spirit of the 209's best, Nate Diaz. And he showed why everybody considers him a star in MMA or in boxing, because he was just finding shots whenever he could on Jorge Masvidal. And when he wasn't punching Jorge Masvidal, he was clowning around and turning his back a little and jumping up on the corner and raising his arms in the air. Diaz was classic Diaz. Now, I will say I didn't like his build up to the boxing card, because once again, his cronies, his Stockton gang, had an encounter with Masvidal's team, and it turned into a big playground fight once again. And for that reason, I will say that Diaz can be very immature in terms of how he handles press conferences and media appearances before fights. But in the end, does it really matter? Because Nate Diaz, when he's in a ring or he's in a cage, is one of the most entertaining fighters in the world, and a guy that you can never count out in a fight. And he showed it here. He actually got a win. There was controversy in his victory because many thought that Jorge Masvidal landed the bigger blows, and some even thought he had a bigger output than Nate Diaz, which is, did you watch the fight? I'm legitimately asking, did you watch the fight, or did you just hear that from somebody online and just copy and paste that into your Twitter comment? But Jorge Masvidal, he was getting pieced up for a great majority of this fight. And then every once in a while he would hit an overhand or he would hit a hook. And then next thing you know, he's beating up Diaz for 6 or 7 seconds. And then the rest of it is just Nate Diaz putting on the pressure and hitting him with more shots. And the thing is, people think that the same MMA rules that these two men worked under apply to boxing. They do not. Forward pressure is big in boxing. If you can back up a guy against the corner and start landing on him and trading, and if you can have good ring control for a majority of the round, that actually counts for a lot, regardless of the blows that you land or that the opponent lands. So who was dominating the pressure game in this fight? It was Nate Diaz. And I would say for maybe 6 or 7 out of the 10 rounds, it was almost all Diaz. And then once in a while, Jorge would hit him with a big shot. But the thing is, people want to count Jorge's punches as having more damage and being more significant. Do you know who he's landing against? Nate Diaz, who shrugs off the blows, dude. Like, there was like one moment where I think he actually got wobbled and was on shaky legs. But the rest of it was he was taking those punches clean, and he kept walking forward afterwards. Like, you got to consider this is Nate Diaz. What is really a significant strike on Nate Diaz? It's what's wobbling him. That's it. And so, for the most part, Masvidal was hitting him with something, and Nate Diaz basically shrugged it off. Kept being classic Nate Diaz, and he just had better striking for this fight. And in my opinion, he did win this fight. I would have had it closer, though. 8 rounds to 2 is a little ridiculous. I'd have it more like 6 or 7 rounds up on Jorge Masvidal. I just think that Masvidal did not. His style might have worked for, UFC or other forms of mixed martial arts or combat sports or kickboxing, but in boxing, it's a completely different game. And Nate Diaz figured out the game for this one. So fantastic work from both men. Honestly, this was a scrap all the way through. 10 whole rounds of nothing but action. The significant strikes and the strikes reached triple-digit level, probably more than any other boxing main event you're going to see these last couple months, which proves to me that UFC and MMA fighters, they got game. They actually have something to give to fans whenever they step within the squared circle or the cage. Like, they actually have a fighter spirit, and these boxers, outside of maybe Inoue or Bud or God, who else? Maybe Navarrete, but he's acting like sort of a moron in terms of his fighting style. The MMA fighters just are more consistent in terms of which ones are badasses and which ones will show they are badasses for the fight. So this was another embarrassment for boxing, and just let me know that it's going to have a downward spiral these next couple months and take a while to recover any respect from me in its eyes. So yeah, MMA boxing is the way to go, guys. They may look like circus shows. They may look like Cirque du Soleil main events and ridiculous stuff, but they are entertaining. When they are good, they are really good. And they're definitely better than boxing. I'll tell you that much. These freaking cowards, man. So after that, I saved the best for last because, in my opinion, the highlight of the entire night was, in fact, or morning, I should say, was K-1 World Max 2024. What a show this was. Look at all these finishes, man. Incredible stuff. Kickboxing is so much fun in Japan. I love all the athletes of Japan as well. This stuff's just fun, man. We start off. I mean, look at all these fights, dude. Like, by the time this show was over, 8 hours had passed. Like, it was a spectacle. It was a full show and then some. It's more than some wrestling and MMA shows. Like, this was an all-night, all-day spectacle for Japan, all night for me and the other people who were watching this stuff. But it didn't matter because it was all action throughout. Even the fights that didn't have finishes were just back and forth slugfests. We first started off with a banger with Kanata Ueno getting a beautiful flying knee on Issei Gaito. Wow, man. I mean, with kickboxing, it's great because it's against clinches. So there are a lot of strikes from like the knee or with punches that just come out of nowhere and put the opponent out instead of having to be all tied up and glued to your opponent before you hit him with a big shot. Carrillo, whoever the hell that guy's name was on Friday Fights, tall people. But when they're the same height, when they're the same weight, and they're forced not to clinch with each other or hug each other and be friends forever, like in boxing, you get results like this. Beautiful flying knee from Ueno out of nowhere. Put Gaito right out. Fantastic finish to start the card. And then Ueno got yet another beautiful finish on Kosei Kawakita. Just amazing stuff. Back and forth action. Never any let up. You're just on the edge of your seat waiting for a finish to happen. And honestly, that's the way it should feel in mixed martial arts. And it hasn't been for a long time. Not since the new gloves, but in Japan, at least, they're still doing things right. 3 knockdown rule for Koji Ikeda versus Koki Tomimura. Brutal fight between these two. Ikeda just had him up against the ropes and was absolutely beating the living hell out of him. Gorgeous stuff, put him down. Looked great next to his trophy. I just love Japan, man. Look at all these great athletes and the finishes that they're getting. Knees and punches. 3-count rule, I'm assuming, from Tomoya Yokoyama. Absolute domination. 1 round, 1 minute, 47 seconds. Round 2, 2 minutes and 7 seconds. See, this is like the kickboxing equivalent of 1 Friday Fights. Like, none of these fights are going to third rounds with a finish. They're either going to a decision or they're getting finished very, very early. And that's the way that mixed martial arts should be. Quick, fast, fun action. Here was one of the great underdogs of the night in Sergio Sanchez, putting out Petros Freitas with a right hook. Brutal, put him out bad. One of the most flashy and exciting finishes of the night. And I was rooting for Sergio Sanchez hard because he won this fight to be a backup in case any of the athletes from K-1 tournament for this show were unavailable or suffered an injury during their fight. And lucky for Sanchez, guy pulled out and Sanchez stepped in. And didn't go so well for him, but I was a Sanchez believer for a very short period during this fight. And then we got the shock of the night and honestly, if you count one of the opponents, the shock of the entire tournament, with Stoyan Koprivlensky versus the legend, the Muay Thai legend himself, Buakaw Banchamek. This was the fight that a lot of people were looking forward to the most. Everybody loves Buakaw who knows Buakaw. He's been in so many fights, won so much gold, came back to Rizin when he was in his 40s and got a brutal finish. Buakaw is timeless for the most part. Unfortunately, he started to show his age and show his time a little bit more in this fight because Stoyan, he has great kickboxing, man. He put down Buakaw with a flying head kick, Alex Pereira style, and he put Buakaw down in the second round. And it looked bad for people watching. They were sad that Buakaw got knocked down. oh God, this is either going to be a draw or a Buakaw loss. And Buakaw knew this because he came back in the third round. He was, I think, tagging up Stoyan with more significant strikes, and I think he tagged up Stoyan with more strikes in round one as well. But unfortunately, it was not enough. I have no idea what these shows do if there are 3 rounds and then there's a draw. We never really got to see it. I'm assuming that they don't really have anything planned because they gave it to Stoyan, even though in a lot of people's scorecards it was indeed a draw. Poor Buakaw. But yeah, this was a great fight. It was a big surprise, and people were happy for Stoyan, even though most favored Buakaw. But I'm sure that Buakaw will be back. It's not like he got brutally finished. He looked good. He sort of looked like a classic Bobby Knuckles performance where he gets dropped at first and then he starts to come back for a majority of the fight. But judges didn't give it to him. That's all right. Buakaw will be back and better than ever. Then we got a back and forth contest between Rafael Silva and Daryl Verdonk. Good work from Silva. Man's a monster. Great striking, great kicks and strikes. Yeah, he just looked like an animal in there. Couldn't get the finish, but he definitely beat the brakes off of Daryl and yeah, beat him up for a majority of this one. Good work. Then Victor Akhimov took on Romano Backboard. Akhimov definitely shot Romano off the backboard in this fight and slam dunked on him. Absolutely brutalized him for a majority of this fight. Looked fantastic. Looked like a guy who deserved to go to the finals. Hit him with a left hook to the body, not even 10 seconds into round 2. Very shocking finish. But I love body punches, man. And I love that there are sports that allow athletes to go to the body and be technical and hit each other with smaller gloves and really just dig into the flesh. No diddy. But Victor Akhimov, he looked fantastic, and he looked like a good prospect going into second half of the tournament. And we had Casper, the friendly ghost, against Zora Akopian. Pretty dominant stuff from Casper. He didn't look very friendly in this one, and outpointed him for a majority of this thing. This was one of the first kind of snoozers on this card. I wasn't that into it. Not a lot of action, but it showed that Casper had skill. And but he not enough that he wasn't unfazed or untouched. No diddy on this card, and he got the dominant decision. But immediately after this fight, he was pulled out due to an injury. So whamp whamp whamp. And I'm sure that Akopian fans are smoking that copium as well. It fits within the last name. Let's go back to see if anybody else has any comments. Wow, what do you know? It's Nocho. How are you doing, buddy? It's me, Hank the Tank. It's my podcast, pal. Are you ready to sign up for the draft? My man, I've been running down this entire card, see, and telling you how MMA boxing and kickboxing is better than boxing's ever been. And that boxing used to have a good reputation for this year, but they've thrown it in the trash, man. They've thrown it all away, and now they're the same old crappy bullshit casino-style boxing, man. I'm never watching a minor league boxing show again unless it has MMA, man. But yeah, it's my show for now. I'm actually wrapping things up, getting pretty close to the end, but it's a pleasure being with all my troopers out there. Yeah, I'm here listening to you, buddy. I know you are, Sean. Thanks for tuning in for this one. It's been a pleasure. And it's been a good weekend of MMA for the most part. I didn't really expect much out of this because, it didn't have a UFC show, so it wasn't big time. But it didn't matter because I think that Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz basically saved this whole weekend and made it absolutely worth watching. So I'll never think about I'll never think about MMA athletes competing in boxing fights the same way again, especially if they're going against fellow MMA athletes, as long as they're not fucking Anderson Silva and Chael Sonnen. So if they're the old washed fucks, if they're guys that have been out of the sport for a while, viewer beware. But if they actually take the fight seriously and actually market it well, watch those, because once in a while you might have a diamond in the rough, I'm telling you. Why did Nate and Diaz? You mean Masvidal and Diaz? I'm assuming that Nate cut himself in half so that he could be 2 people. I don't know where Nick Diaz is, but I know that Nate has found a son in Diaz. They get 10K more in attendance than Shakur's hometown title fight. I'll tell you why, No Chill, because Shakur Stevenson is absolutely boring as fuck. And if you watch his last fight with whatever the hell his name is, I'm just going to look it up because I'm no sellout. I actually do my research and I make sure that I'm saying the right names here. His fight with his last opponent was absolutely rotten. Anyone in the know who's watched boxing for long enough knows that he had single strikes numbers, like single-digit strike numbers in his last fight. And it was one of the most boring fights of the year with Edwin De Los Santos. Absolutely abysmal performance from Shakur Stevenson. Got him the win, but basically ruined his reputation as a prospect and made people think, oh my God, this guy's going to do anything to win. He's not a crowd pleaser. He's not someone who's looking to get the finish. And that's a big thing in boxing, especially since that's the only way that you can win. But Shakur did pretty much nothing in that fight. And honestly, that continued into his fight here. And anyone with a brain would know that Shakur was going to have the same sort of tentative approach, even with the chance of him losing his belt by decision, because the last fight, O'Shea Foster got absolutely robbed, even though he had the exact same scorecard as Shakur Stevenson, dominant win, 11 out of 12 rounds. And his coach was telling him, get the finish, Shakur should get the finish. And Shakur, literally to save his life, could not finish that fight. For his own sake, to like literally life or death situation, he could not get a knockout in that fight. It's not like his opponent was even being tentative or holding up his guard that much. He was throwing at Shakur, and Shakur just didn't care. He didn't have the wealth of knowledge or the speed or the power to put his opponent away. So he's a box office poison, and I'm glad that he's trapped in Top Rank in their B shows. Hey, look what we got here. I found him. You're here, Skatesman. Quick, Idaho Skatesman, blink twice if you're okay, man. If you're not trapped in Isha's little echo chamber, his ASMR office, let me know, Skatesman, please. I gotta know that you're all right. You gotta come back. I'm dying here, man. It may be the Hank the Tank podcast, but I need you, man. I need my compadre. I'm lonely out here. My voice is dying, man. I only got like half a glass of water. I'm on the way out, man. I'm gonna die. I need your help, Skatesman, please. Okay, he's fine. Damn it! You took away all the fun, Skatesman. You destroyed my narrative. Oh, man, things are back to normal. Well, now you know, troopers, that Skatesman is still alive. And what do you know? The amount of live viewers increased because Skatesman is here. So it looks like the grinders have found their way back into the chat. Looks like things are back to normal, and it's the short lifespan of the Hank the Tank podcast now. The Ward Zone is going to need some renovations to install the new skate park. Oh, I know. I'm fine. I'm just wrapping things up. I'm at the tail end of this thing. But yeah, we've been talking about K-1 and how Diaz and Masvidal and K-1 completely outshined the top-ranked boxing card. But then again, it doesn't take much to outshine top-ranked boxing. But honestly, there were moments in that card that completely ruined my love for the sport again and made me a boxing hater. So it's good to know that there are niches and alternatives in boxing to keep me entertained. Fuck Top Rank. Fuck all these big promotions that pretend they have really tough kill or be killed boxers because they don't. Those are in MMA or in Japan. Anyway, we get back to the action in K1. Riamu versus Angelos Martinos. Great stuff from Riamu. Absolutely pieced up his opponent for 4 whole rounds. The leg kicks and the body kicks, as you see on the Tapology page, made the difference. He was just spamming that shit like it was a Mortal Kombat game, and you just been to your friend's house and you have no idea how the controls work. And that's how Riamu approached this fight, and it got him the win in brutal fashion. Then we got Masashi Kimura absolutely flatlining Antonio Ordon with a left hook, not even a minute into the fight. This is why I love K1, baby. Then there was Akihiro Kaneko versus Kan Meng Hong. Went all 3 rounds. That destroyed my argument that most of these were finishes in the first or second rounds or really fun fights. But still, you know, broken clock is right twice a day. And Kaneko was able to break Kan Meng Hong with a barrage of punches. early in the third round. Good for him. Then we had yet another beautiful display of kickboxing from Stoyan Koprivlensky against Rafael Silva. This was pretty much a burial for Stoyan. Silva presented pretty much nothing for him. Stoyan was better with the kicks. He was better with the punches, and very clearly outpointed his opponent for all 3 rounds. Things were getting a little hairy after the fight, though, because it looked as if Stoyan began to walk out of the ring with a limp. And so people were very concerned with him going into the finals of the K-1 tournament. Then Victor Akimov once again showed why he is a fantastic kickboxer against poor old Sergio Sanchez, who I was rooting for very hard in this tournament because he was a backup opponent. And it's always fun to see a good underdog story come to its fruition. But unfortunately, the Spaniard was absolutely pieced up by Victor, and he just had better kick games. And eventually he tore Sanchez's meniscus and ACL right out of its socket, and down goes Sergio. Poor guy. At least he got a win. I have no idea how payouts work in tournament-style fights. In my opinion, you should pay anyone who gets a win a little bit of money for their troubles. And as you can see with Sanchez, his medical bills for a ripped-off leg. Then we got Shintaro Matsukura in the first super fight of the night, leading into the last quarter of the show, should I say. Got a unanimous decision against Alexandru Merite. I remember absolutely nothing about this fight because it was completely unmemorable. Terrible stuff from Shintaro, terrible stuff from Alexandru. Alexandru was getting pieced up more. Matsukura looked decent, but I don't know why this was a super fight. Looked more like a shitty fight to me. So shitty fight, boom, boo, boo, shitty fight. And yeah, then we got an actual super fight between Yuki Yoza and Kongnapa Wirasakrek. Hi! Arigatou gozaimasu! But Yuki Yoza was definitely saying that after his fight because this didn't last long. Thank the Lord. We were already 7 hours into this show. We needed a quick finish to get us awake again, and that's exactly what Yuki Yoza did. Knocked him down 3 times. Absolute destruction. Isho was going bonkers. I was too. The chat was insane. Beautiful stuff from Yuki Yoza. And look at that mean mug, man. He looks like fucking Clint Eastwood with a fistful of dollars in his hand. You know, there are 2 kinds of people in this world. Those with loaded guns and those who dig. You dig. And yeah, I definitely dug this fight. And Yuki Yoza, I'm a new fan, baby. It looks like a mean man in Japan. So I'm going to stick with his career and see where it goes. And then finally, the coup de grace of this fantastic show with a whole boatload of this, and once again proving why Japanese combat sports is the combat sport to watch in the world. Stoyan Koprivlensky, unbelievable underdog story. Kicked the ass of Buakaw, kicked the ass of Rafael Silva, who was also a threat in this tournament, and finally beat the brakes off of Victor Akimov, who looked fantastic in his last 2 efforts in this tournament. Just didn't give him any room to breathe, and was just every second he was hitting him with something, and looked like an absolute god at the end of this thing. Despite limping outside of the ring, he looked better than ever. Like he didn't even break a sweat. Like all of a sudden he had pumped some stem cells into his body, or maybe pumped some other, elements into his body. I'm not judging. It's Japan. You can do what you want. But Stoyan, wow, what a performance against Victor. Every second of this was domination from Stoyan, and then not completely shut the lights out with punches. And Stoyan is a K-1 winner. He's now a legend in the making. The Bulgarian gets it done. And I like the way this man fights, man. He is dangerous, danger. And I can't wait to see what he does when K-1 returns for a tournament at this weight class, because this guy is an absolute killer, brother. And I can't wait to see what he does in other promotions and in K-1 because he is a star in the making. New Shogun, baby. I'm looking forward to it. Oh, brother. Well, it just shows that I care, okay? I'm no pussy. I got emotions. I'm a real man. I can show them. And Idaho, I was concerned for his health, man. It looked like he was kidnapped. He was MIA. I didn't know where he was, and so I was just looking out for the health of a friend. What can I say? Oh man, Sean, you kidder, you stop with that cancel culture humor. How could you? Yeah, he will have a bill over 10K, and I don't know how he's gonna pay for it. I'll be honest for you. Maybe he'll get it from Chatri's 305,000 baht bonus if he goes over to Thailand. But yeah, what a fantastic weekend of fights. Absolutely stunned me. I did not expect Diaz versus Masvidal 2 to be as great a fight as it was, but it absolutely delivered and was my favorite fight of the entire weekend. And it resulted in a 209 California win, baby. Let's fucking go. Local hero gets it done, even though he acts like a bitch in media performances and is very childish in behavior and walks out of press conferences to use the bathroom, and his team's always getting into brawls. It doesn't matter because Nate Diaz is a certified first ballot Hall of Famer in the UFC. Chad Gangsta. Oh, yeah. And he got it done for my hometown area. So good for Nate Diaz. What a guy. And what a great fight between those two guys. I want to see the rematch. I don't care if it's in MMA or in boxing. Give me those two absolutely hashing it out once again, because what a fight that was. And then One Friday Fights delivered, as it almost always does. Like I've heard many of my comrades, many of my contemporaries say, get rid of ONE FC mixed martial arts, put in Muay Thai, just allow absolute carnage to unfold every night, because the level of talent in their mixed martial arts has basically jumped out a window, and it's not worth any investment anymore. But no one's going to say that to Chatri, because otherwise they'll be thrown in the pen and never find an escape from their absolutely atrocious contracts. We know how Chatri jail works, ladies and gentlemen. You'll hear the song about Chatri jail in the near future. You know how bad it is. So yeah, I'm gonna do my best Tyler Wolf impression for some blues song on those Chatri jail blues. You'll hear it in the future, troopers. But yeah, good stuff for Friday Fights. It's worth the early wake up to watch One Friday Fights. It is absolute carnage from beginning to end. My suggestion, do not watch One Fight Night ever, unless it's looking at highlights of Muay Thai and Muay Thai alone. And then for the ONE FC pay-per-views, I don't know, man, watch the main card, because it has MMA in it, and ONE FC MMA is the spawn of Satan, as we all know. Also, fuck boxing. Whatever hope you had for boxing, just cast it aside, because it's become the same old bogus promotion, casino run shit show that it's been for a very long time. It has reverted to its past self after we hoped that it would evolve. It's back to normal. So once it's back to normal, I'm back to bed, if you know what I'm saying. But yeah, watch alternatives to boxing, or watch Naoya Inoue. Those are the two options. And then whenever Japan's in town, stay up all night. It is a very unhealthy lifestyle being an MMA fan, but it is very rewarding at the end of the day. And it's better than 90% of the stuff that UFC and ONE MMA shit out on a daily basis. So just stick with what you don't know, rather than what you know, because it'll always surprise you at the end of the day. Fight next in Masvidal bare knuckle MMA. Ooh, that would definitely be fun. I'm sure that bare knuckle FC would absolutely chomp at the bit for an opportunity to have Masvidal and Diaz in their promotion. And then maybe, just maybe, you could have Conor McGregor versus Diaz 3 in bare knuckle boxing. Ooh, I'm playing 4D chess, aren't I? I'm a pretty good promoter myself. Me and Idaho Skatesman, we're the best fantasy league promoters in Ryzen, and we're the best fantasy league promoters in BKFC. So remember that, because we're the best. Trust. I will definitely email you, Sean. We have a good rapport with each other. But yeah, I mean, send me some messages on Discord. It takes a while for the live chat to upload on YouTube after this stream is posted. But until then, I'm Hank the Tank. You have escaped the war zone for now. for now until the Idaho Skatesman comes back. And then I know your eyes are going to be glued on the screen when your favorite MMA junkies besides the Canada-Minnesota man are in town. But things will be back to normal on Thursday or Friday. I guarantee it for you guys. We're covering the abomination that is Rose Namajunas. I said her name. Oh, God. Versus Tracy Cortez, who I actually like, and I am definitely 100% rooting to win that one on a sort of mid-card, which is really sad given that it's in front of a live audience of thousands of people. It's really a shame what UFC does to us sometimes, guys. But we carry on, and I will have all my full card picks for UFC Fight Night, wherever the hell it is. I think it's in Denver. Jesus Christ, that poor Denver crowd. But until we meet again, until Idaho and I meet again, you have escaped the war zone. You have escaped my drivel for now. We're clear out, man. I'm getting in with the machine gun. Oh my God, a grenade! Oh, mama, mama! Hey.